Welcome to Big Little Stories. I'm Ivy Sharmetz. I have always loved being from New Jersey, and I take pride in being a Jersey girl and really all things Jersey. So when I hear about projects that celebrate our great state, I always want to talk to the people behind them and learn more, which is why I am very excited that Mike Ham is here with me today. He's the founder and CEO of Ham Radio Productions, the founder of Radio Garden State, and the creator and host of the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. Thank you for being here, Mike. I think I got everything. Did I get everything? Did I include everything that needed to be included?
Yeah, everything that needed to be included. The rest you could leave out. I mean, that's more just for me, you know?
But you're like becoming Mr. New Jersey. How did that happen?
Wow, that's a good question. In podcasting during COVID was really when all this stuff started. I used to sell title insurance up until about a year ago. I was basically like going out for lunches, events, drinks, whatever with clients. COVID rolls around, obviously all that stuff stops. And I needed a way to stay connected with people, continue to do my job. So I started doing, virtual networking events that I started running. And then those led to a little LinkedIn video show that we started to do. And then that evolved into what became the Morning Spotlight, which was the first podcast that I ever started. And that was more for business. So I was talking to commercial real estate attorneys and people that were experts in 1031 exchanges and just things that like I did in my normal day-to-day job. And after a while, I got kind of bored, as I'm sure people did, just listening to me talk about what I was talking about on that show. So then I started bringing on like musicians or former athletes or whatever, just people I thought that were interesting. I was in a lot of podcasting circles, so other podcasters that I knew, and was kind of like picking their brain and seeing what they were doing and what they were doing in different parts of the country, the world, and all that kind of stuff. And then that was 2020, really, May 2020 when we started that. And then in August of 2021, I was home one night, maybe like one or two drinks in, was just started like writing down notes. And I had this idea, like I did one in-person episode at a buddy's studio down in Trenton, and I loved it. It was my first ever interview live face-to-face, and it changed my perspective on really everything. So then cut to a couple months later, we launched Greetings from the Garden State because I wanted to be able to go to places, interview people around the state. I had no money for a studio, so it was like, let's just literally, like, this mic that I'm talking into, I bought 3 years ago. Same thing with this little mixer that I have over here, and that's what we've been using since then,
So I'm going to stop you there for a second. So this is not like you studied podcasting and when you were a young boy, you were like, I want to grow up and have like a talk show or something. This was something that evolved and what you just like learned as you go along.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I listen to a lot of, sports talk radio even now. And I think that's kind of where this whole thing started. Like I grew up listening to Mike and the Mad Dog and Imus in the morning and, all these other things, and Joe and Evan in the mid, like all these shows. That kind of there's definitely recordings that are, my parents just moved and they destroyed all their hard drives for, security reasons. But I'm sure on those hard drives, there was recordings of me like pretending to talk into a mic and like host a show. But really, I have a political science degree. Was my bachelor's. I have an MBA. I was a college baseball coach for 5 years. Then I sold title insurance for 6, and now I do this full time. So there's a lot to it, but I didn't study. I mean, I just have taught myself how to do literally everything for the last almost going on 5 years now in a couple months.
Wow. So everything that you do, or at least the things that we're talking about here, are really focused on New Jersey. You grew up in New Jersey, right?
Correct. Yep.
And tell me about that. Tell me about growing up in New Jersey. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pequannock and Morris County. When I was 14, we moved up to Sparta, which is up in Sussex County. So Morris County, Sussex County. I mean, when I lived up there, it was a lot of farms, and I think a place that in Jersey that people forget about quite a bit, that there is people that like grow things here, thus the Garden State and all that. Eventually, I went to school at TCNJ down in Trenton. I did live in other places like in Pennsylvania and New York, but don't tell anybody, for a couple of years. And then then I moved to Morristown for about 5 years, and then we just moved to Bloomfield back in January. So honestly, it's been amazing. Like I started in school at Franklin and Marshall in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That was where I went to college first. I eventually transferred back and went to TCNJ, and it was just like this like weird moment. I remember being at like a basement house party with like a bunch of people from Jersey, just transferred to TCNJ and was like, wow, like I didn't realize how much I missed home until this moment right here. And it was just, it was crazy, but it was just like one of those things where, it connected with me, and I think like a lot of people from Jersey, like it's one of these things where you forget how much this place has to offer, and how much the people here have to offer and all that kind of stuff. And then you kind of like remove yourself for a minute and then you come back and you're just like, oh, wow, like there's so much here and so much at your fingertips that it makes it easy.
Yeah, and that's so true too, because when we grow up here, I mean, I how much I love being a Jersey girl and how much I appreciate New Jersey. And when you leave New Jersey, you hear a lot of the jokes about New Jersey and some of the unkind things people say about people from New Jersey. But really in New Jersey, I think overall we have a really good sense of Jersey pride. Did you always feel that? I mean, you are definitely like a big cheerleader for everything New Jersey, but did you always have that sense of Jersey pride, or was it something that developed when you left and realized that you missed it?
When I left and realized that I missed it. And it was funny, like even when I lived out in Lancaster or up in Rochester, I was almost like exotic in a way because like I was from Jersey,
like a
and all these
country?
people from those. Yeah, right. Basically. Well, because I think most people that are unfamiliar with Jersey, they either see it on TV programs that don't always paint us in the best light. Or they fly in here, they're literally driving from like Newark to the city or like Newark to wherever. Right. And that's not like the most aesthetically pleasing part of our state. But I would say that like that was probably like the first time, like I mentioned, like when I realized I missed home was like that first moment. Honestly, even when I started the show, it was really built around the fact that like I wanted to do in-person interviews. Like I just loved the medium of podcasting and getting in front of people and learning their stories. And then over time, I mean, I've been doing that show now for over 3 years. Like October 18th, 2021 was our launch date. We launched with 3 episodes. And since then I've gone to places I've never been to. I've made friends that like, I would always joke, like I have no business being friends with somebody that's been to the Olympics or been on Survivor or like has been on Top Chef or The Voice or, a James Beard nominee. Like I'm an insurance salesman at the time, and like it wasn't until we really like the show really showed that it had a lot of growth potential. And I really started sinking my teeth into how we ran the show, that I really realized like how much there is here and how much we have to offer and what my new favorite places are and like where I like to go, where we like to go eat, where we go to the shore, where we go wherever. So I would say I haven't always had that, but once I started scratching that itch a little bit, it was just like, there is a treasure trove of stuff here that is awesome.
Well, they say that the best interviewers start out selling title insurance. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I read that someplace. I forget.
It's a good thing. But you mentioned some of the people that you've spoken to that have stood out and some of the friends that you've made. But are there other interviews that you think, as you were doing them, you thought to yourself, wow, like this is a pretty cool moment?
Oh my God, there's so many. Ivy Sharmatz was one.
You're good. But I did. But full disclosure, I did. I was very happy to be a guest on your show. Kind of. What was it like 2.5 years ago? I think at this point. Almost, right? Yeah.
Honestly, I think it might have been a while back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's going to be hard because this week we released episode 153. Wow. So there's a lot that I'm really picking from. I would say there's been a couple like moments where I'm like in a place, like when we recorded with the Battleship New Jersey down in Camden, like that was something that was like wild. Like it was so cool. And like we recorded on the ship. So like it was just walking on there and like doing that episode. I mean, we've done stuff with Eric LeGrand, who's amazing and just like an iconic sports figure here in the state, and a wonderful person too, like to boot, which is, I guess, sometimes rare in some cases. Like I'm literally getting like chills, like talking about all these great moments, like the Devils, the World Cup stuff, the Prudential Center just as a whole, like all these, those types of things. But then also just kind of like the local business that's been around for forever. Like we've done Rutt's Hut, we've done the Great Notch Inn, and some of those two are just kind of like institutions in the state of New Jersey and have become friends of mine. And like in Rutz's case, a business partner of mine when we do Jersey Fest and all that. But at the same time, like it's just when you're bringing these stories to people and you see like what the reaction is, particularly with the Great Notch, because that place is like a little place that like no one really goes to because they just think it's a biker bar and you're going to get beat up if you go there. And, you know, I've been a bunch, and now Rich has become a friend of mine, but like the place has 100 years of history there and like has survived 2 eminent domains. Like the reason why Route 46 and that point is so messed up and has been since I was a kid is because of them, you know, because they've just been like, you know, the classic Jersey bird, you know, to everybody, and then have stayed there forever and really built a legacy that people love to hear about.
Yeah. And as you're talking about this, it's reminding me, you know, I spent so many years working in New Jersey journalism. And the more you do it, the more you realize how there are so many cool little stories and cool little pieces of history and little tidbits that a lot of people don't necessarily know. But when you learn them, you get even a greater sense of pride for where we are.
Yeah. And that's really like the thing, like my fiance, Chrissy, like she always jokes about the fact that like, she's like, you know, you don't really do like a ton of prep. And I was like,
oh, I know.
Well,
I can attest to that.
And I know it makes like actual professionals like yourself, like really make your skin crawl. But like at the end of the day, like I'm there to learn. Like it's just like my curiosity drives me. And like, that's what puts me in these positions. That's what gets me in front of these people. And like, that's what gets the conversation started. Like nothing drives me crazy. Like I don't listen to podcasts because like I just,
you don't listen to any other podcast?
None. I know that sounds weird, but I don't. I have too much stuff going on. Like the radio station, my own podcast. Yeah. We produce podcasts for people. So there's just like a lot of things going on that I just like to sit there and like then listen to somebody else talk, or like somebody else is asking questions and I'm like, why didn't you ask this question? You know, like that stuff drives me crazy. And like, I just need to like shut that part of my brain off for a couple minutes a day, you know?
Well, and I will say, to be fair, when I was on your show, it was a little unconventional for sure, but I'm trying to think of how to say this nicely. What you what you lack in prep, you make up for it. You do have this natural curiosity and this innate desire just to really kind of soak up information about people and learn about people in a very authentic and genuine way. And I think that's why your interviews are so great and why people like coming on your show, because it feels like just a real authentic conversation where people get to share the stuff that, you know, that they're doing, that they're loving, that in the life that they're living.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think like for me, and when I say no prep, like that's
no, I know.
You know,
I know. It's all relative. It's relative.
Yeah, I know. Like right. I do tell people though when I walk in and I have my notes in front of me, it's just where we are, so I don't forget. The name of the person, again, most of the time, so I don't forget. Yeah. And then really it's just like I want the story to come out organically. And I always want it to be something where like I don't want to put myself in a position where like I see where the ending is, because like as an interviewer, as a host of anything, like you're a storyteller, but you're telling somebody else's story, right? So like I want to land your plane in the place that I think is the most interesting to me. And then I hope that is the most interesting to the people that are listening, you know? So like, I don't want to have a preconceived kind of like ending point of this story. Right. Like if they say something and we're talking about something and we get on that topic and we wind up spending 30 minutes on it and it's just like, I am locked in, we'll go all day, you know, like that to me is what, well, then we'll go back and do another one. Like we haven't done that yet, but I would totally do that if we got off track, you know, but I think like stuff like that is really, to me, like the best part about this, you know, is like really being able to kind of learn someone's story, tap into that, and then see where it takes you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the cool things about podcasting that makes it different from other forms of interviewing, because you sort of expect that kind of authentic, organic conversation, and you don't really know exactly where it's going to go. Yeah.
That's the best part, honestly.
Speaking of where it's going to go, we're going to take a very short break here.
Sure.
But then when we come back, we've been talking about the podcast, but I want to talk about the radio show and some the radio station and all the other great things you have going on. So we are going to take a very quick break, and we will be right back with more Big Little Stories. So, Mike, we've been talking about the Greetings from the Garden State podcast, and I follow you on your social media. And one day I see a post that says something about Radio Garden State, and I'm like, what is that? So, Mike, what is Radio Garden State?
Radio Garden State is the premier internet radio station, 24/7 feed that primarily features creators here in the state of New Jersey. So artists, bands, podcasters, tattoo artists, which I know we can kind of like dive into that too, but we do like a tattoo artist collab on the station as well with our merch.
Wait. How do you talk about tattoo? Is it you're talking about tattoos on the
So we basically partner with a tattoo artist per month, and that artist designs a t-shirt for us that we sell on the store, and then we split the profits with that artist. So it's cool. You know, if maybe like you're a little timid and like you don't want a tattoo, but you like want to, like you like the art of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's like a low stress, low commitment type tattoo thing. So we've done 3 so far. Okay. We're gonna do something a little bit different for December, and then my friend Mick, who's owner of Shotzi's Tattoo in Pompton Plains, he's this month actually in November. This month's t-shirt, but he's gonna kind of take that over for me in the new year and kind of work with tattoo artists from all over the state, because I just thought that was another interesting way to kind of get artists and creatives involved in what we're doing. Yeah. But yeah, so Radio Garden State, it was just honestly, you know, I know at some point we're going to talk about it, but Jersey Fest really started to kind of like.
Let's talk about Jersey Fest, because I know that Jersey Fest has really become like the big project that has really been directly related, right, to the work that you're doing on Radio Garden State.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did an episode of the podcast with the Prudential Center back in January, and I didn't know, but they own White Eagle Hall in Jersey City, and they started talking about it. And I always had this thing where like I knew all these people from the podcast, and like I wanted to work with them in some capacity. You came to our 1-year anniversary party. So we've done live events in the past. So like we do it at Glenbrook Brewery in Morristown to give them a plug. We have guests donate raffle prizes, or like, you know, Daddy Maddie's Barbecue brings food for everybody, stuff like that. But there was more, like I knew that there was more opportunities there. So I pitched this idea of doing basically like a show at White Eagle to the group at Prudential Center. Jersey bands stock the bar with Jersey breweries, distilleries, all that. Bring in outside food from Jersey restaurants if you can. So we've worked with Jamie Knott, who's consistently one of the rated as one of the top chefs in the state. His restaurants, I think Saddle River Inn just made the top 100 restaurants in the country, according to Yelp or Open Table or one of those. Ruts Hut did their first ever pop up in 96 years of being a business at the first ever Jersey Fest.
How'd you get them to do that? I mean,
just asked.
96 years. Okay. You just, so 96 years, no one had asked them. Is that what you're saying?
Basically. I mean, honestly, okay. I think I did notice that they were doing like a little bit more on their socials and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, we had booked the episode of the podcast that we did together. And that just kind of got like this conversation started. Yeah. And then the idea was great, but we really had no way of like cooking the hot dogs at White Eagle because they don't have a kitchen. Mm-hmm. So Johnny Porkroll, my boy, Johnny's Pork Roll and Coffee too down in Red Bank. He also has a food truck, drove his truck up to Jersey City from Asbury Park, basically. Ruts and Johnny both cooked in the truck, and we served Taylor ham, egg, and cheeses. Sorry, Johnny. And Ruts Hot Rippers the whole night. And we had Jamie doing tastings for our VIP ticketed guests upstairs from Cellar 335, which is right downstairs from White Eagle. And it was unbelievable. We had 5 great Jersey bands, and it really kind of showed me like the power of all this kind of stuff. And then it started like getting my wheels turning. Like I'm someone, especially going into this year, side note, got laid off from that insurance job I was talking about back in October of last year. So a little over a year ago. And I went into 2024 and I said, if I'm going to take a swing at this, I am going to take the biggest swing you could possibly take. So we're going to try Jersey Fest. That was a success. I didn't lose any money on it, which was amazing.
That is amazing, because that was your first time. And a lot of times the first time you do something, you do have to eat a little bit of it, but that's amazing that you didn't have to.
Yeah. I mean, we broke even. So great. You know, and then like learned how to price this out a little bit better and all that. But then that we also did a Jersey Fest, a second Jersey Fest down at the Wonder Bar in Asbury Park at the beginning of November, which was like a smaller scale because Wonder Bar is about half the size of White Eagle, but we still had Rutt's Hut down there. We still had Johnny Porkroll there. We had the New Jersey Lottery there with their whole table and giveaways and scratch-offs and everything. And then we had 3 bands, the same thing with the bar, stocked with breweries and distilleries from the state. And it was amazing. And it really, like, to me, that is how we built everything that we do out in the community. So like podcasters, and there's a place for all of this, but the way it's just unique to the way we built Greetings, the way we built that was going out into the world, being visible and getting in front of people and having those conversations. So why not bring everybody together and be in person, visible, have those moments together that it like revolve around Jersey. So that's how that happened essentially. And then essentially that was what led me into this idea of Radio Garden State. So like we started working with Jersey bands more. We obviously had them as guests on the podcast, but like how else do you get their music played if not like hoping that one of the radio stations around the state plays them, which a lot of times they don't, because most of the stations, and I'm not going to say all because I'm sure I'm going to be wrong, a lot of the ones that you would listen to are owned by national media companies. So like they know that
very hard to get on the radio. Yeah.
100%. So North Jersey, that's New York. South Jersey, that's Philly. Right. So who's here? Who's here for us? So we like, it's like, you want to see at the table, just build your own table, and like, let's just do it ourselves. So it started out July 1st. We turned the stream on July 1st of this summer. And we haven't turned it off since. So we've been rolling. It started out just me. I did like an hour live to kind of kick off the stream July 1st at 8 a.m. We now have about 10 live hosts that host shows throughout the week. And from all different parts of the state too. So, like I'm in Bloomfield here in the Spaghetti Triangle. We have, my friend Chris, who is our morning show host, who's been kind of our de facto COO and has been amazing to have as like someone else that like can take a little bit of the pressure off of my brain. He does our morning show from 7 to 9 every day. We have a bunch of other, amazing shows that kind of broadcast throughout the week. So I'm Ron Santee down in the Pine Barrens, like somebody up in Pompton Plains, like really we're trying to like stretch the state and see like what we can do. And it's all mobile. So we can broadcast from anywhere. Like you don't need to be in studio. It's like, it's fine. But then working with more Jersey bands, different advertisers, like different ways to kind of get messages out. And at the beginning, it was a lot of podcasts, and we still run a lot of podcasts on the station too that are hosted by really creative people like John Pavaromo, who's a comedian here in the state, Severed, which is our like resident true crime podcast. And there's a bunch of others. I mean, I don't know how many podcasts at this point we're running, about 20 something throughout the week. So, and it's like ever evolving too. Like we're new enough where we're kind of malleable and able to kind of like change up what we're doing and see what works and try different things. We just got listed on Odyssey, which is a huge thing for us. And we're working with NJIT right now on an app. So we'll have a Radio Garden State app done by the end of the semester. And then that's just going to kind of take us into like the next echelon of listenership and engagement and all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. You have so much going on. One final question for you. When Johnny Porkroll texts or emails you, does he include a lot of oinks in his messaging?
Yes.
Yes,
he does.
He does that for me as well. All right. It's a man who lives true to his profession.
He's an interesting guy, and he is one of my favorite people on this planet. He is amazing.
And he's like quintessential Jersey. Websites real quick. If people want to get in touch with you or they want to find out stuff you're doing, what are the websites for them to go to?
So I would send them to greetingsfromthegardenstate.com if you want to learn more about the podcast, radiogardenstate.com about the radio station. If you want to check in on what we're doing on the production side, marketing side, all that kind of stuff, hamradioproductions.com, and you can get everything from there.
Awesome. So Mike, we end all of these shows with 3 big little questions. Everyone gets the same questions. We do them rapid fire. Are you ready, my friend?
Yeah, I wish I prepared.
All right. Why start now?
Why start now?
All right, Mike, how do you get yourself out of a bad mood?
Honestly, we actually had a whole conversation about this. My fiance, Christy, and I, and our dog, Duck, who's probably sleeping on the couch, like right outside that door. It's just like we crash at the end of the day because we both have so much going on, and just like that moment of us like having dinner and like watching an episode right now, ironically we're rewatching The Sopranos, so like having that moment and decompressing like with the people that I love the most, like I cannot be in a bad mood when I'm in that mode.
I love that. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Ironic by Alanis Morissette.
Oh, okay.
I just love like the like learn to
Interesting.
fly and you do the
Yeah.
whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And last question, which I think it'd be impossible for you to answer, is what is one of your favorite spots in New Jersey? I'm sure you have like 10 million, but just give me one.
Okay. One. I'll say Rutsa because they've been so good
Okay.
to me and like so awesome to work with and obviously like they're legendary. And for me just to like have a relationship with them and do some stuff with them, I'll say there. That's my
Okay.
favorite place.
Perfect. Mike, thank you so much for being here. As Johnny Porkwell would say, oink, oink. Um,
Thank you so much for having me. Oink oink.
thank you, Mike. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That is going to do it for this week's Big Little Stories. I'm Ivy Sharmetz, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks so much.